Survive in Advance on the Gruely True Sports Network. I'm your co-host for Survive in Advance, Mike Goodpaster, and I'm stunned and at a loss for words because Steve Risley has now been wrong on every pick he's made for over a year. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, it's kind of a bummer day out here. It's only going to be 70 and sunny out here today. Yeah, we've got cold snap coming through.
All right,
so
and
it's, not good. Mike, I continue to say, I'm just going to say it right now at the beginning of the show, because I know everybody's going to listen right now. You are a genius at picking games. You should be a buddy or a booking agent, or you should be, a prognosticator, whatever they are. I'm going to start calling you Mike the Greek.
Oh, not Greek.
Because you pick them right. But I'm the only one yesterday who said that it would be a blowout.
Yeah.
It was a blowout. I just picked the wrong team.
Okay. I don't think that makes it any better. And the first part of our show, the first 15 minutes, we're going to talk about Alabama-Clemson. Then Brian Rauf from Fansided, Busting Brackets, will be on to talk a little college basketball. And Alabama did beat Kentucky earlier this weekend. So,
yes. Roll Tide.
Yeah, and as you hear Roll Tide, you'll hear another man that picked this game painfully wrong. Former Alabama offensive lineman, Bill Searcy. How you doing, Bill?
I'm all right, man. The weather here in Alabama is not 70 and sunny. It's overcast, appropriate for a day after the loss of Alabama losing the national championship.
Yeah, and let's talk about that game. Trevor Lawrence, the only reason I had this game being close is I thought he would be a little nervous at the start of the game at least. But, Bill, this kid's the real deal, and as long as he's at Clemson, they've got to be the favorite to win a national championship, don't they?
I agree with you. I mean, he was the real deal. And the other night when we talked, I thought that we would get more pressure on him than we did. There was a couple of times when we did get a little bit of pressure, and it did shake him, and he missed a couple of balls. But other than that, man, the guy was flawless and played a great game. Clemson as a whole, just played a fantastic game.
Yeah, because I thought coming in, the one place that Alabama had an advantage was at receiver. But, Justin Ross, 6 receptions, 103 yards. I think you could have cut his hand off, and he'd have still caught the 6 balls for 153 yards. The other thing that stood out to me was, really the fact that Clemson ran the ball well. Alabama, if you look at the stats, ran the ball all right. They had 150 yards rushing. But the problem is, when you fall behind that quick, it's really hard to do anything. And the thing that stood out to me was Clemson's defense. And the way, right as the ball's being snapped, you see him go from cover 2 to cover 3 or cover 3 to man. And I think they really gave Tua Tagovailoa a lot of looks that he'd never seen before.
I agree with that, too. And, Coach Saban, when they interviewed him at halftime, he made a comment about that Clemson was doing some things that they had not prepared for, and they were going to have to make some adjustments at halftime. But, I think as far as statistically, except for the last 12-minute drive or whatever it was that Clemson had in the fourth quarter, time of possession, total yards, Alabama and Clemson were very close in statistics. But, you throw a pick six to start the game, and you go, and we're inside the five. How many times did they get points out of it?
Yeah. I'm looking at the stats right now. Yeah. The stats right now are surprisingly pretty even if you really look at it. 347 yards passing for Clemson, 282. It's pretty close. That's one long pass.
But not in the turnover
Alabama
department.
outrushed.
The turnover department.
Yeah, Alabama outrushed. Total yards was only 50 yards off. They had a receiver that had 105 catches, 139, Judy. And, the stats down the line, what's the difference, Mike? These stats don't represent the outcome of the game.
It's turnovers. Turnovers usually represents the stat that matters the most when deciding a football game. Just like if it's a basketball game, usually the team that turns the ball over most loses. And in the end, that was the difference. And the difference to me was just, and I said it yesterday, the reason I picked them was the most important thing to have on a football team is a dominant O-line and a dominant D-line. And I thought that they were just better up front. And the thing that surprised me is how little impact Quinlan Williams had on this game, Bill.
Yep. once again, we talked about this the other night, that he was being double teamed, which you have to do, and he broke a couple of double teams and made some tackles. But other than that, you're right. He was fairly, relatively ineffective. But if you get inside the 5, Mike, 3 or 4 times in a game, and you're Alabama, and you can't punch the ball in from there, there's something drastically wrong going on, or you're just playing a superior team. And last night they were playing a superior team, because Alabama usually does not get stoned on the, within the 5, inside the 5. And I don't know how many. It was either 3 or 4 times we should have had points, which we didn't. So, but you know what? No excuses. You said the other night about Clemson's offensive line, and I was kind of, wishy-washy agreeing with you, but you were right. I mean, they were dominant last night, and they did make a big difference. And Alabama's linebackers were, to me, unimpressive last night, and our DBs looked like deer in the headlights. So I'm not sure exactly what was going on preparation-wise, but Clemson was
this
prepared.
Is the thing, Bill. Let me throw the schedule thing back on you, because Alabama, outside of LSU and Georgia, did they really play a big-time schedule?
Well, no. Other than, we all down here like to say, SEC. But what I saw last night was that, SEC every year is not as dominant as maybe what we think it is. And you're right. If you looked at Alabama's schedule before the season, you thought there were some pretty tough games in the schedule, but the teams that were supposed to be tough weren't during the year. And so, we struggled with Georgia to get through the SEC championship, and we just never win the game. We were never really in the game last night.
Yeah, but Mike, I don't know if you can call that a factor, because, I mean, let's face it, the ACC is not known as a football power conference either. I mean, it's not like Clemson plays tough competition all the way through.
I think Clemson, I mean, the fact that you get the national champion 2 of the last 3 years here, though, makes you kind of look at it. I mean, you had a team like Syracuse that gave them a game. And really, I think this is the first down year the ACC's had in 3 or 4 years. I think the ACC was the best conference in football last year. When you had Lamar Jackson at Louisville, I mean, they were deep. I think a lot of guys graduated, which hurt that. But, I mean, it's still, the reason I bring that up is when people rip on Notre Dame, they rip on the schedule. But when you look at the rest of these teams that are in the Final Four, Oklahoma didn't play a bunch of world beaters. I mean, Alabama, when you look at the Oklahoma game, there's a case to be made that you take away that, 28-0 start or 24-0 start. I mean, Oklahoma outplayed them for 3 quarters. And they only scored 23, 24 points over the last 6 quarters they played. And when you look at the schedule, I mean, Mississippi State's an all right team, but I think what we're finding out is this. And I think this is the main reason more than 4 teams is necessary, because I think anymore, almost every one of these leagues, you might have 2 or 3 top teams, but the rest of it's all pretty much the same as every place else around the country. And I don't know why Alabama plays the Citadel. Well, I do. It's kind of like a bye week, but you get to play still. In Louisville, I don't blame them for, because Lamar Jackson's not there. That game was probably scheduled a few years ago. Louisville's been a good program as of late. So I think when you look at it, I'll give you this. I mean, I think that Alabama, did they really play a physically really good team this year, Bill, outside of Georgia?
No, probably Georgia was the toughest competitor that Alabama had in the schedule when it was all said and done. And what I saw last night was the 2 best recruiters in the nation showing off their talent, but game plan wise, we were not ready for what they showed us, and they were,
I'll tell you this: you made the comment yesterday comparing Saban to Bryant. I think we're to the point where Dabo Swinney can be in that conversation without a problem, because I think what he's done. I mean, Clemson program was nowhere compared to being an elite program when he got there, and he's got them now that they're the best program in the country consistently now.
Well, I said last night watching the game that if I were a kid being recruited by Alabama and Clemson right now, it'd be a tough. I mean, you know, it'd be a tough decision where I want to go. And when I saw the stats that Alabama seniors and Clemson seniors, I think, have exactly the same win and loss record, and both of them have 2 national championships under their belt during their time at each college. So, you know, the parity between these two is unbelievable. And I think we're going to see them battle again in the near future.
Oh, next year.
All right. A couple points here. You're not going to convince me that the SEC is not the strongest football conference in the country, and that their weak teams are better than most of the better teams in any other conference. I don't think Alabama's schedule is that weak.
Weak teams are weak teams. Vanderbilt's still not very good. I mean, no matter what you do.
Yeah, but you know, the rivalries out there, the way that people get into the games, everything that goes on, it's just a little different there. You know, I don't think Clemson, the ACC, I don't even consider a power football conference.
Really?
A power basketball conference.
You don't. I mean, last year
they've got a great team.
Last year they had like 7 teams ranked in the top 25 at the end of the year, which was more than anybody had. And they've had the national champion for 2 of the last 3 years. Well, and I hate to tell you this, but your Big Ten, you know, out of those 5 years, at least 2 or 3 times, the Big Ten and Pac-12 hadn't even had a team in the Final Four.
Did I even mention the Big Ten, Mike?
And I'm not saying the SEC isn't the best. I'm just saying there's not as much difference as there used to be. Because when I look at these teams, I think this. I think Alabama was really good. I think LSU was really good. Georgia was really good. Kentucky was good. So you got 4 teams there that were really good. Where most of these conferences you got 2 or 3. I just don't think it's as huge a difference as it used to be. You go back 5 years, and this isn't even a discussion.
All right, here's the second part of my question, Mike. You have 2 kids. One plays offensive line, and one plays quarterback. Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, both call tomorrow. Where are you going to say your kids?
It's not even close. They're going to go play for Dabo Swinney because the difference between Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban to me isn't even about coaching. And I think Bill knows where I'm going here.
Style of coaching.
I would trust my kids with Dabo Swinney over any coach in the country. And I'm not even talking about winning.
The machine versus the fun factory, huh?
What was that, Bill?
I was going to tell you, I'm almost certain I've told you this before, but I worked with Dabo Swinney in the real estate business, and he had a little stint out of football for a few years, and he worked in Birmingham, and we worked together in the real estate business, and I know what kind of person Dabo Swinney is, and it would be a tough decision, you know, where I want to send my kid. I'd feel good either place, quite honestly. But Dabo Swinney is a quality guy, and he's going to teach your kid a lot more than just football. So I'm a Dabo Swinney fan too, but you know I love Coach Saban, and I'd have a hard time deciding where he would go. Either place I think right now is good, and Dabo is an elite coach now. Those 2 guys are both elite. So I don't think you go wrong either place.
No, I don't either. I'm just saying overall, for what I would want my kids to learn, Clemson looks to be the place. And a lot of me saying Clemson, Bill, is a lot of the discussions we've had in the past where you've talked about Coach Swinney.
Yeah. Right. And he is what you see. There's nothing fake there. And, you know, he can get hard when he needs to get hard, but he's got his own process going on, just like Coach Saban does. It's 2 different processes, but both of them seem to be working pretty well.
Yeah, they both work better than everybody else's processes.
Yep. So, right. Bill, question for you, Bill. Has Saban kind of maxed out at Alabama? I mean, is it time for him to maybe go try the NFL again or something like that? Or is he turns into a Bob Snyder 30-year coach at some university or what?
I don't think so.
Another Bear Bryant?
Yeah, I think he will stay, and whenever that is, I don't know if it's this year or 5 years, I think he will retire out of Alabama, and I said this other night about the NFL. I think he had enough of the NFL in his short stint. I just don't think he's an NFL coach, head coach. I think he likes coaching young men, and I think he likes making them better players and better people and watching them graduate. And I think he loves all those parts about college football. And I'll say this, and I'm sure y'all noticed it too. I saw a different Coach Saban on the sideline last night, and I'm not sure why, but he was not the same guy as intense as we've all seen all year long, no matter who you were playing, and I'm not sure why. I'm a little bit confused about that, and we probably never will know.
How about this, Bill? I know you got to go pretty soon, but could that be because Nick Saban knows football? Nick Saban watched the film of that game going in, and I think Nick Saban knew what he was facing.
Do you think he knew and pretty shortly after it started, Mike, that
I
this
think
is going to be a rough road?
Yeah, I think once you saw Clemson's defense to me and what they did, Dabo Swinney with that defense and the way they played like an NFL defense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
I do.
Tua's not ready for that, and I believe this. I believe Tua's going to be a great NFL quarterback. I think Trevor Lawrence is. I think next year Tua goes number one. The year after that, Trevor Lawrence goes number one, and they probably both win Super Bowls at some point. But I just think that when Saban saw the way the game was, I don't think, from listening to him at a halftime, I think he was surprised by what Clemson gave him. And the other thing that surprised me is this. As a football coach, you can't just wait till halftime to adjust. If you can't make the adjustment on the fly, you're going to lose. And that's what happened to him last night. Because sometimes, like last night, it's too damn late once you get to halftime.
Yeah. Yep. And that's his whole attitude last night seemed to reveal that he knew what was going on, and he was seeing things that they had not seen and had not prepared for. And I said the other night, our depth on defense, we don't have any depth on defense this year. Yeah. And so it wasn't like there wasn't a bunch of guys to replace people with. You had to play with who you had. And, I just think Clemson was better prepared and had a better game plan. And Saban knew it early on, and that was about it.
Well, how about this? We'll wrap up with this. I think this is the best Clemson team I've ever seen. I don't think that of Alabama. I think that what you had was you had a Clemson team that was more well-rounded, even better than the team that beat Bama a couple years ago. And I just think that this Clemson team, especially after all these guys get in the NFL and you see how many of them turn out to be studs, I think they're going to talk about them in the same breath as the Bama teams from a few years ago or the Bama teams you played on.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I mean, it was – I saw a great team beat Alabama last night, and my hat's off to them. We're already talking about our spring game in Alabama, so we're looking forward to that already.
You got to have something to look forward to. What the hell? All right, Bill, it was great to have you on. We're going to go ahead and transition now to Brian Rauf, so we're going to run a commercial. But as always, Bill, it's a pleasure, and we expect to have you back on again soon.
I'd love to, guys. Thank you very much. And as usual, I'll finish with Roll Tide.
All right.
Roll Tide.
We'll let that go then. All right, guys. We will be back with Brian Rauf to talk college basketball right after this.
Hey, sports fans. Chris and Graham here from the Grueling Truth Network.
Baseball's boring. It's too slow. Where's the fun in it? If you think that, then why the hell aren't you listening to Out of Left Field with us on thegruelingtruth.net?
Hey, thank you, guys.
On our show, we make baseball way more than just a bunch of numbers. Laugh with us, probably yell at us, and hopefully learn a thing or two from us.
Ever wonder what it's like to be a major league umpire or why they made the call they did? Lucky for you, we have our own umpire on the show, even have big league umpires stopping by from time to time, and even the occasional big leaguer or two.
And all of that's just the first 10 minutes. Come on by and join the fun. Listen to Out of Left Field with Grant and me every week on thegruelingtruth.net, and give us a follow on Twitter and Facebook.
Just search Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham and like our page on Facebook.
Hello?
Or
Hold on,
use our
Brian.
Twitter handle, @OOLeftField.
Yep.
It's that simple. See you all this week when we put the ball in play on Out of Left Field.
All right, guys, we're back on Survive in Advance. I'm Mike Goodpaster here with Steve Risley. Want to thank former Alabama two-time national champion Bill Searcy for coming on the line and talking about last night's college championship game. And right now we want to transition into, of course, Brian Rauf, who joins us every week from Fansided and Busting Brackets to talk a little college basketball. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great. Steve's sick, but he feels good because it's 7 degrees and sunny out in California.
Oh, of course.
All right. My question is this. I'm looking at your article on Fansided. Kansas is the third best team in the Big 12. Do you think that's maybe a little bit of overreaction this soon?
I do not. I know a lot of people looked at that loss to Iowa State. It was alarming, but it was just a one-game sample. But if you look at the bigger picture with Kansas, and I've talked about this a little bit before, they've really been a one- or two-man team with Dietrich Lawson and Udoka Azubuike down low. Their guards have been inconsistent ever since Gerald Vick has cooled off since his really hot start to the season. It's been those two guys carrying them with minor contributions from the rest of the team, which is why we've seen them struggle with some teams that aren't so great. We've seen them struggle at home against Vermont. We saw them struggle basically at home in Kansas City against New Mexico State. We saw them struggle at home again against Stanford, who's not very good in the Pac-12, which tells you that they're really not very good. And so you take those games into the fact that they've now lost 2 of the last 4 games, and that Udoka Azubuike is now out for the year with his wrist injury. There's a lot of alarm bells that should be going off around this Kansas team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know about the third best, but at least the second best, because to me, from what I've seen, Texas Tech has Jarrett Culver. I think Texas Tech is the best team in this conference.
I would agree with you right now. Their defense is as good as ever. Jarrett Culver is the kind of star player that they need offensively. They've got enough offense in other places. But we also can't look past Iowa State, who just beat Kansas by 17 and hasn't been totally healthy yet this year. Lindell Wigington, who was their best player, was in his second game back in that game and was still trying to shake off some rust and contributed, but did not play his normal role. So I think this Iowa State team is still only going to get better.
All right, let's transition to Virginia, because I know you put on here that you think they may be the best team in the country. I think a lot of that, people ignoring that's because of Maryland, Baltimore County. And I'll tell you, when we do our top 25, that does play into it for me. And they're kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid. You look at them playing the Colts and you think, well, they should win this game. But then you think about what's happened in the past. So I think for Virginia, no matter what, they're going to have to make a run for anybody to take them seriously. And I don't think anybody's going to take them seriously until that happens.
Yeah, they're going to have that stink on them all season long. They can go undefeated this year, but no one's going to take them really seriously until they actually see it happen and come to fruition in March. I think this may just be me being a sucker again, because that's been known to happen with Virginia and the way that I just really like the way they play and really respect the way that they play. They've changed some things this year that makes them different, in my opinion, than from years past. You still have Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome, who are a very solid backcourt. DeAndre Hunter, as you mentioned, has stepped up and become a really good player, still one of the country's best defenders, and is now not necessarily a go-to guy offensively, but is somebody who can get you 20 points a game without really working too hard at it. It's really efficient. He is an athletic wing like they haven't had before. Braxton Key is another guy off the bench, an Alabama transfer, who's in the same mold, not as good as Hunter, but gives them another athletic wing. So suddenly you have 2 matchup problems on the wing, which is something they haven't had before. And then they have they added to their backcourt a small, quick freshman who has added some speed defensively to that backcourt, which was needed because we saw the lack of athleticism of Jerome and Guy kind of get exploited against UMBC. So they fixed that as well. I think Tony Bennett should get a lot more credit for recognizing the deficiencies in his team, and his already good team, with what was wrong with them last year and have gone out and fixed them this offseason. We'll see if those make a big difference in March, but from what we've seen from them in the regular season in the past and from what I see from this team right now, they should be right up there.
This whole thing about holding Virginia hostage over last year is like what happened. That was a fluke. I mean,
it's not just last year with Virginia, and it's not just last year with Coach Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, I think this is the second best team. Virginia's the second best team in the country behind Duke right now. I saw Michigan play against Indiana, and Indiana could have won that game. I mean, they got off to a better start, which that Indiana sadly is a very notoriously slow starting team, which you figure you play against a good team, but even at Chrysler, Indiana had opportunity to win that game. With the last 4 minutes to go, they had it down to 6 points. They got the two big stars in foul trouble early. Michigan, I think, is not the second best team in the country. I have not seen Tennessee play very much, but I've seen Virginia play, and I think that they're right there with Duke right now, and they're going to be in the mix in the Final Four this year, I believe.
Well, how about this? And I'll let either one of you answer this, but Duke, I think, is much more talented than Virginia. But I think the way Virginia plays, it did last year, and I think it will this year. I think it gives Duke trouble. So it's not even about which team's better. It's whether, Duke can adjust to the way Virginia plays or enforce what they want to do on Virginia.
Oh, yeah. In terms of head-to-head, Duke has struggled the most with teams that make them play a half-court offense on a slow-down half-court game, which is what Virginia does, and they do it better than everybody. That's why Texas Tech is really good, but that's why Texas Tech almost beat Duke. We've seen teams like Army and Yale hang around, and Hartford hang around longer than they should against Duke because they were able to put that style of play in and were able to hang around with a much more talented Duke team, obviously, for a half, 25, 30 minutes or so in some cases. Virginia does that better than everybody else and has probably more talent of anybody who plays that way. So head-to-head, they pose a real problem for the Blue Devils.
I haven't seen Duke play in the last couple of weeks. Are they still kind of playing 1-on-5? I mean, individual ball more as team ball, or are they starting to come together as a team? We talked. It's kind of what you were alluding to. Virginia plays great team ball, and Duke. The times I've seen Duke, it seems to me there are 5 great talents on the floor playing their own game, and not playing as a team. Is Duke getting any better at that, or are they just going to stay with that model all year long?
They're getting better at that. They've before a lot of their offense was one guy drive and then either lay up or kick it out, and then they'll swing the ball around the perimeter until somebody has an open three or an open lane to drive again. Obviously, they're great in the fast break, which is why they struggle in the half court. But now we're starting to see them have more success kind of running their half court sets, which is the growth you would expect from a team that's this young. Excuse me, as talented as they are, it's important to remember that they're still all freshmen, and this is still their really second, third month playing together in game situations, which is important to remember. And they're getting better at that. They're still not as efficient as they will be, as efficient as I'm sure Coach K would like them to be, but they're certainly improving in that area.
Okay. Let's talk about UCLA all of a sudden. They come out now, they change coaches, and they win their first 2 Pac-12 games by 20 points.
I know.
What's going on there? Was Alford that bad?
Well, I think a change, as any midseason change does in any sport, can seem to re-energize and refocus a team. Now, obviously, the 2 teams UCLA has played, Stanford and Cal, I believe, are not great teams themselves, so it may have been a perfect time for UCLA to kind of get right. But we're seeing them try again. We're seeing them have a little bit more fight, a little more togetherness. And that goes back to everything just seemed broken under Alford. It no longer looks broken. It looked like a team again.
Yeah, they're scoring 90 points a game without him, too, where before they struggled offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Brian, is UCLA now the team to beat the Pac-12?
I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go a full 180 on them just yet. It's up in the air, though. I put something out there. Arizona might be the team to beat now, simply because with that home court advantage and how bad everybody else is in that conference, they may not lose at home, and that may be good enough. I still think Arizona State is the best team, but
they've lost, haven't they?
Yeah, so they lost their opener to Utah at home.
Yeah.
And from what we saw from them last year in conference play, too, I don't have a ton of confidence in saying that they'll win the conference. Washington's probably the best, most talented team, but they haven't shown anything this year that would give you any confidence in them either. Oregon's fallen apart since Bol Bol's gone out for the year. So, I mean, the door is wide open for UCLA if they keep playing this way, but I want to see them do it for more than just a week under Bartow before I start thinking that they have any real chance.
Well, if he's half as good a coach as his daddy was, they'll be fine at UCLA.
Yeah, and both games were at Paul Pavilion, too. I believe they're both home games, weren't they?
Yeah, I believe
so. It's a little.
Were they giving tickets away?
Out here I don't know. The rumor out here is Pitino. Is that going to happen, Brian?
No. I saw something come out, actually, a couple minutes where he went on, that the Board of Regents has kind of come out and shot that down. So it seems more like a fun idea right now, but it doesn't look like that UCLA is going to end up letting that happen.
All right, real quick, my question is this. The Cincinnati Bearcats, Mick Cronin. They've had Mick Cronin for what seems like 40, 50 years. They're always the same. What's your take on the Bearcats? Because to me, when they play teams that aren't very good, the East Carolinas, the UCLA Alfords, they win and they score points and they look good. But when they play Ohio State, Mississippi State, they get beat. And this has been the constant problem with them through the Mick Cronin era and even the Bob Huggins era, other than maybe the 92, 93 Nicky Van Exel teams. They just can't score. Defensively, they're great, but they can't put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, well, they lost to East Carolina over the weekend, so that was, I think.
Oh, they did? I didn't even know that. I would have been excited about that. I hate UC.
And that's probably, the worst basketball program in that conference, so that's certainly not a glowing thing for them to have on their resume. But I wish people would stop trying to convince me. From people talking on TV and just people on Twitter, just people stop trying to tell me that Cincinnati is any good. Because, as you mentioned, they're going to beat the teams that they should beat. Those are teams that they have no chance against teams that are equal to as good as they are or better than them, because their offense consistently goes into a shell and they can't figure it out. And it's happened, as you mentioned, year after year after year after year, and we still keep playing this game. Well, maybe Cincinnati can do it this year. If you saw them do it against Tulane, they're not different.
Okay, Big Ten. Who's the best team in the Big Ten right now? Is it Michigan or Michigan State?
I think you could go either way.
I saw Michigan play. I wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
I think Indiana could have won that game.
I don't know how you could not be impressed. They only turned the ball over 3 times. They shot 50% from the field, and they won by double digits against a top 25 team. Come on, Steve. And they're undefeated. Nobody's beaten them. They've blown out Villanova. They've got a few good wins. Well, Michigan can play. I don't know if they're better than Michigan State or not, but I'm betting they are.
I don't know if there's a huge difference between Michigan and Michigan State. I will agree, Steve, in that Indiana game, it felt like Michigan had another gear that we've seen from them that they could go into, that they just didn't go into for whatever reason. I never felt like that game was a doubt. Even though the Hoosiers got close, never really felt like Michigan was losing control of the game, which I think is a testament to, again, how good and solid they are, not turning the ball over, shooting well, getting good shots, playing good defense. It never felt like it was getting out of hand or that they were losing control of the game, but it didn't feel like that they weren't able to go into another gear. We've seen them have that other gear, but we haven't really seen them hit that mark, I would say, probably over the last month. That doesn't mean, we've seen them hit it, so it doesn't mean that they can't, and I expect them by the time March rolls around to be able to hit that extra gear again. And Michigan State, I think, is hitting that right now. They're really gelling and coming together around the start of Big Ten play as they do every year. I have a hard time saying one of them's better than the other right now. I know they play each other in 2 of the last 4 games of the year. I think they'll probably split those. It wouldn't surprise me if they were co-champs.
Okay. The SEC. I'm seeing more and more teams ranked in the SEC now, and even in Mike Goodpaster's top 25.
It's not Mike Goodpaster's top 25. It's Brian Rauf. It's Mitch Davis. We got all kind of people to vote. And the thing that I put Steve Risley's name on the bottom of it because I expected to get a vote from him. I called him Friday night. I said, hey, by Sunday night, and it didn't happen.
Right. And Sunday at about 3 o'clock, Steve Risley went to bed with the flu and has been in bed and since this morning when I got out of bed.
So would you say that Steve Risley is a procrastinator because he wasn't prepared?
No, Steve Risley was near death. So
okay.
Yeah,
but see, when you make a comment like Mike Goodpaster's top 25, I know, but you brought me up. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, okay. Is the SEC becoming a basketball power? A power conference?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily at that same level as the ACC or Big Ten, just in terms of depth. But there are probably 5-6 teams that you could see as having top 25 talent or being top 25 teams. Kentucky, obviously, is Kentucky, and they've struggled a bit this year, but we know they're really good. Mississippi State has been one of those teams that has kind of come through in what is a breakout season for them and what many were expecting to be a breakout season from them. They're a really good team. I'm excited to see them once they get into conference play and start playing a bit tougher competition more consistently. Obviously, Auburn and Tennessee are up at the top and have been the teams we thought they were. LSU is another team I'd keep an eye on. We've talked about them before, really, really young, but have a lot of talent and just haven't really put it all together yet. The SEC race is going to be a lot of fun to watch because I think there's a good number of teams that all play really high-quality basketball.
Couple of teams I'll get your opinion on. What's going on with Kentucky? Are they just a weak year, no talent, or what's going on?
Well, they really struggled on the road, and most of their losses, I actually think all of their losses have come away from home or on neutral sites. I think they're 500 or just under 500 in those games, which is not great for them going on the road in conference play, obviously. But they're again a young team that is starting to figure out their roles. I just think that they're young players who don't play as well on the road as they do when they're comfortable in Lexington. We've seen that from, that's the case for role players really in any sport. And they're a team that is mostly made up of role players. They have a bunch of guys who are very talented who all fill a role. Keldon Johnson is probably the closest thing they have to a bona fide star and go-to player. But outside of him, everybody else is more slotted into a particular role and are essentially very talented role players. And those kind of players tend to struggle more on the road than they do at home.
And then the other question I had, Gonzaga, they're kind of just lurking around there. I mean, in the Grueling Truth poll, we've got them at number 6. Are they good enough to be competitive this year? I mean, for a championship, or are they just kind of a little bit below everybody else?
Well, they finally got healthy. Killian Tilly and Gino Crandall, who's a grad transfer point guard, both of them finally got healthy this past week and played. So Gonzaga have been playing as good as they played early in the season. We're playing shorthanded. So they're better now. The problem is that we're not really going to see them get tested until March again, until the NCAA tournament. The San Francisco is a really good team in the West Coast Conference and might be able to steal a game from Gonzaga, but it wouldn't be surprised if we didn't hear really anything about Gonzaga again until March, and because they're just beating everybody by double digits the way they should. Whether they're Final Four championship good, I think will depend on the play of Josh Perkins and him not turning the ball over and them getting a little bit better defensively. But this is a year where all of the good teams have at least one flaw that can sink them. And Gonzaga has that, but have the best combination, I think, of the group of experience and talent. So that's going to be really interesting to watch in March and is going to play, I think, a big role in their favor in the tournament.
Mike, do you have a question? Because I've got plenty more, but if you want to ask one,
You're fine.
please don't let me. Okay. I go back to my same theory again, Brian. We see teams like Nevada, Kentucky, and Kansas get into league play, start losing, immediately. Yet they have these glistening schedules in the preseason. Is it good or bad? I mean, when we won in '81, we were 7-5 going into the Big Ten because we played tough teams. We didn't play patsy teams. And is it good or bad to do that? I mean, is it because now all of a sudden now the rankings just shuffle up completely once they get into league play? Kansas goes from number 1 or number 2 to what do we have them in our poll? Number 11 in our poll. What should teams be doing? Should they get a better mix? Should they play tougher teams? Should they stay with their patsy schedules to get wins?
Well, I think in the case of all those three teams, they all tested themselves. They all played good teams. I don't know. Kentucky in particular played a lot of really good teams. Kansas as well. Nevada got tested some. I think their biggest game ended up being Arizona State. But they played a couple of good teams. The big thing is that all of those games are neutral court games, which prepare your team for the NCAA tournament, which is expected and is a good thing for a team. But now they're getting into these true road games, which are the toughest thing to win in the sport. So, the recipe for that would be playing more road games in these non-conference schedules. But at the same time, you'd be sacrificing preparing your team for NCAA tournament atmospheres. So that may not be in the best interest of your team, depending on your reasoning or the way a coach may look at that. I will say, though, in the case of all three of those teams, there were signs in the non-conference of all three of them, struggling against lesser competition and having to maybe eke out some games that should have been blowouts. And we're seeing that level of play come back to bite them now that they're playing better teams consistently.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's more of a fact that they play too many games at home. They get too comfortable playing sleeping in their own beds, dressing in their own locker rooms, and because I know Indiana was 11-2 going into Big Ten play, and pretty much had played all their games at home except the 2 losses that they had. They lost at Arkansas, they lost at Duke, and they won one neutral court game with Butler. Other than that, every game Indiana played was at Assembly Hall, and I just don't know if that's a good deal either to prepare your team, for March Madness, which is what ultimately every team should be doing. I mean, that's what you're living for now is your conference championships and then March Madness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mike, you got a question?
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
I'm done.
Hey, y'all lost to Pan American in 1981. No, that was a tough team.
Yeah, we did that in Hawaii. That was in Hawaii.
That was a good team.
And half our team had food poisoning that game too. It was the ugliest plane ride home. The toilet was never empty.
Is it food poisoning or the hangover flu?
We got in line. There was 8 IU basketball players in line on the plane coming across the Pacific Ocean, trying to get in one of the 4 toilets on the plane coming back because we all had food poisoning.
But really, I never knew that Pan American team was as good as what they were. Do you know that Pan American team, the year they beat you guys, also beat Marquette?
They only won like 4.
No, they didn't. They were 19-10. They played the NIT.
Oh, okay.
But they beat Marquette. They beat eventual Sweet 16 participant Wichita State, who lost to LSU in the Final 8, the team you guys played. And then they went to the NIT tournament and lost to Tulsa, who eventually made it to the finals of the NIT by 10 points. I didn't know that. Now, they finished 5-20 the following year because they graduated all 5 players. And the other interesting thing about your Pan American University, or whatever they're called, Lon Kruger became the coach in 1982. And here's some other interesting tidbits about Pan American basketball. Delray Brooks was the head coach there from 1997 to 1999.
Wow, great. No, I will tell you, though, on the plane ride out or something like that, because we went 1-3. I don't even know. We lost to Clemson. We beat somebody. I'm sure you can pull it up. Or who did we beat the first game? Rutgers was it Rutgers?
Yeah, it was Rutgers by 5.
Yeah, and then we lost to Clemson with Larry Nance, and then we got beat by Pan America. And literally, when we landed, it was like just a food poisoning fest. I mean, and it was all coming out the wrong end.
Nothing like a food
poisoning.
And
there was no player. There was no player that didn't feel good. And
all right.
We literally.
Here's my question, Brian. How good is St. John's?
I think they're pretty good. We haven't really seen them prove it yet. We'll get a chance tonight when they're at Villanova. But I think they're really good. They haven't gotten credit because they played a terrible schedule to this point. But, I mean, they're one bad call at the end of that Seton Hall game, a bad call and then a 3 at the buzzer, from being undefeated right now. Shamori Pons is playing as well as anybody in the country and is right there in the National Player of the Year conversation. I think they're really good.
All right, and next up, tomorrow, TCU goes to Kansas. TCU's a really good basketball team. How much trouble can they give Kansas? Could they beat Kansas at Kansas?
They can give Kansas a game. I think they could beat Kansas in Fort Worth, but I don't know if they can beat Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. I know that I've said Kansas is the third best team in the Big 12, but I'm not ready to write off the end of their streak this year just because I know how tough they are in that building, and that's good for pretty much a win in every game they play there.
All right.
Go
ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was just going to say TCU is a good team and are probably a top 20 team when Jalen Fisher is healthy, their point guard. When he's not, though, they can lose to anybody. So that's the big key for them.
All right, and how big is this game for Indiana at Maryland? They haven't beaten a good team on the road yet. Maryland's a good team. I think this is a game where I look at it. Indiana should win this game even if it's at Maryland.
Indiana's a better team, plain and simple. And better teams should win those games even if it's on the road. Maryland, I think, is still trying to prove themselves a little bit. They're a very young team and are still trying to prove that they can kind of move out of that middling tier and get kind of in the upper echelon of the Big Ten. In the upper echelon, but in the top half of all those teams behind Michigan State. And Indiana, if they want to finish third behind Michigan State, this is one of those games that they have to win.
And also, when I look at these games, to me, I mean, Duke at Florida State is a really good game. Florida State's got a lot of talent. Are they good enough to handle Duke at home? Because I think they'll at least be in the game.
They'll be in the game. And Florida State thrives on chaos and playing that pressure defense and turning you over. That's conducive to a more up-tempo game, which is what Duke does better than anybody we've seen maybe since UNLV in the early 90s. I mean, the way they get up and down the court with those athletes is incredible and not something that Florida State wants to encourage, even though their style of play encourages it. And Trey Jones, who's Duke's point guard, is turning the ball over at one of the lowest rates in the country. And so if Florida State wants to play fast and turn you over, Duke is a team that plays faster, better, and doesn't turn it over. I think Florida State's good enough to stay in it, but I think we could see another game where Duke wins comfortably by double digits.
All right. Are there any games I'm missing here that are coming up that interest you?
At UNC and NC State tonight, I know being in Raleigh, that may sound like a homer pick.
Because it is.
But I think that's what it is. But I'm interested to see UNC playing a good team on the road. UNC has not put it together yet this year. Even when they beat Gonzaga at home, they didn't look like they were playing well. They made their shots and scored a ton of points, but they never looked like they were playing great. They haven't put it together yet. And NC State's a team who wants to play fast. They press you 94 feet. 10 seconds or less on the shot clock. They want to get a shot up. They want to make it attractive. They know their style of play, and they play it very, very well. And but they haven't really been tested either. They're 1-1 against teams that are ranked in the top 45, I think, in KenPom, which was at Wisconsin, which they lost, and at home against Auburn, which they won. So I want to see this test to see if NC State is for real and a real top 15 team. I also want to see if UNC can kind of start putting it together, or if this is going to be somewhat of a lost year potentially for the Tar Heels.
All right, and another team that I wanted to bring up to you real quick is the Houston Cougars, because I know when we do our top 25, everybody says their picks in. You had Houston up to 11, and it didn't seem like you thought you would ever have that team this high this year, did it?
No, they're undefeated, and you give them a lot of credit for being undefeated. They haven't played anybody really over the top good yet, like kind of that top tier teams. They've beaten a lot of very solid teams, which it is a credit for. And they're one of the best defensive teams in the country again. They have the nation's longest home winning streak, and they have two players in Corey Davis and Armani Brooks who are capable of starting for any team in the country outside of maybe Duke. So they're a team that's talented, plays good defense, and defends their home court. And with the schedule they have coming up, the American, I would be surprised if we saw them lose before February.
All right, Steve.
They're not a factor. Yeah, I do. They're not a factor.
Oh, geez.
Kelvin Sampson will have him on suspension by the end of the season.
Kelvin Sampson's a good basketball coach. What did he do wrong?
Well, it doesn't matter what he'll do. He'll have him on suspension.
Now, what has he ever been busted for that was really that bad? Seriously.
Okay, touche. Well played. Well played.
I mean, what was it? Phone calls?
Yeah, it's like phone calls and texting, of which would be under the allowable right now.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
Oh, now we got
as far as we know.
Yeah. Okay. As far as
no, that's okay. Never mind.
It's all right.
It's early in conference play. I get it. Which conference do you see as being the most competitive conference, top to bottom? Which conference is going to be the most competitive in terms of all teams having a chance to knock everybody off all the time?
Competitive top to bottom, I would say the Big Ten, because Illinois is probably at the bottom of the Big Ten. Pecking order, I would probably say right now, but the way they play.
Yeah, they're not a bad team. They just lose a bunch of close games.
Right. And so I think
they hit Indiana down by 10, early in the game.
Yeah, and with how many teams are kind of in that middle of the Big Ten, in between Michigan State, and then Illinois at the bottom, all of those could beat each other in any game, and nobody would really bat an eye. Top to bottom of the Big Ten, clearly to me, is the most competitive.
Which makes for good basketball.
Oh yeah, every single game is fun to watch. Maybe boring, like Wisconsin, Minnesota was, but every game will.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you like. I mean, if you're living out there in Tobacco Road, and you like that ACC Greyhound basketball, where you run and fly up down the court, and anytime you breathe on a player, you get a foul called on you. You get the Big Ten, where you knock the crap out of somebody. You have to knock 3 teeth out to get called a foul on you in the Big Ten.
I don't want to watch teams shoot 30% from the field and a half and score 14 points.
No, that's because we play defense in the Big Ten.
No, whatever. You just said that you violate the rules in the Big Ten and hit each other too hard.
Yeah. Well, it's a physical conference.
It is.
Whatever. It's also a physical
It's not a greyhound.
Yeah.
ACC is a bunch of greyhounds.
Really?
They fly up and down the court, stay away from each other.
Well, I'll tell you what. Duke physically beat the hell out of Indiana earlier in the year.
Duke's got I think Zion would find a way to be okay in any conference.
Yeah, you got to play. Yeah, those guys can play in the Big Ten. That Duke could be. Yeah, they do well in the Big Ten. They probably do at least as well, if not better. So, but anyway.
All right. Anything else, Steve?
No, I think I've.
Also, by the way, we had Lucas from Canada sent a message that Steve should take Viagra to cure his flu. LOL.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. There's another idiot Canadian who.
I know. That's why we don't like Canadians on this show.
What does Viagra have to do with? Does he even know what Viagra does? He probably doesn't. He probably doesn't have sex. I doubt it. If he has to,
he's not married.
If he thinks
Steve.
that Viagra's going to.
Steve, he's not married.
Viagra's going to cure the flu?
It's a sin to have
really?
sex
I don't
before
think
marriage.
So.
It's not a sin?
Hey, I got one more question, Brian, for you.
Mm-hmm.
Is Bob Knight the turnaround for Texas Tech? Did he start that movement for Texas Tech and get that entire basketball program turned around?
I would say he made them relevant as a basketball program, but I don't think what they are now is because of him, if that makes sense. He brought some attention to Texas Tech's basketball program, which went away for a little bit, and now
with Pat Knight,
one way with Pat Knight. Tubby Smith brought them back to being competitive, and I think Chris Beard has taken that and run with it.
Yeah, it's so, but it was really kind of nice that kind of when he went down there, he kind of put Texas Tech back on the basketball map, and then kind of, like you said, got everybody kind of interested in the program and started getting players in there. Because, I mean, he took them, to the tournament 3 or 4 years he was there?
Well, Sweet 16, lost by a point to West Virginia or something?
Yeah, they made a couple pretty decent runs.
Yeah.
But
I'm done.
I know. But, hey, Brian, did you know that yesterday Steve picked a blowout in the national championship game?
Did he pick it in favor of Alabama?
Yeah, he did.
Yes, I did. I got a half right. I picked the blowout. I just picked the wrong team.
And I just know that somebody on this show since September has told everybody the best team in the country is Clemson. I don't remember who that was, but it was me.
Brian, can I just be humble and say that Mike Goodpaster is a freaking genius?
Thank you.
He's now Mike the Greek. He's Mike the Greek.
There you go. I have noticed
the new Jimmy the Greek. It's Mike the Greek now. He can pick games.
I'm hardly ever wrong.
Every game you've picked since I've been on has been right.
Yeah, that's what
he's been right. He's perfect at it. I'm not even a winner. I'm not even going to pick. I'm not even going to pick games anymore because I'm going to say, Mike, whatever you say, I agree with you.
Well, don't do that because then I'll be wrong on everything.
No, I'm going to let you make the pick first.
Okay.
Good, I was watching that game last night. And as a South Carolina alum and fan, all I could think of was the fact that we have to play both of those teams next year. And it's going to be super fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the bad thing for you is neither one of those quarterbacks are allowed to go into the draft.
No. We're already starting the year 0-2.
Yeah. Oh, that's your first 2 games of the year?
No, we played Clemson last, and then I think Alabama in the third game. But I mean, those aren't wins. So
no, those aren't wins for anybody in the country, probably. But Brian, you want to tell everybody where they can find you on the internet?
Yes, so you can find all my work on bustingbrackets.com, part of the Fansided network. It's bustingbrackets.com, or you can find me on Twitter at brauf33. It's at BRAUF 33.
All right, and when the NFL season's over, after the Super Bowl, I think we're going to try to move you to Friday. We preview all the games like we do to football, if you're up for that.
Very much for that. Let's do it.
All right, we are going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Make sure you check out all the shows on thegruelingtruth.net, especially the show from Sunday night where we all picked a championship game because I was right and Steve was wrong. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So, for Bill Searcy, Brian Rauf, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak. All right. Cool.